and we are the Rooted Readers. And we are back with another book review.
We are going to be reviewing Start Something That Matters by Blake Mycoskie. So let's go ahead and get into it.
So I read this book maybe about 5 years ago when I first decided when I first decided that I was going to start a nonprofit. I had been going through a lot of different things where like I was still working my job and I knew that there were certain things that I was passionate about, and then there were certain things that like I understood about the nonprofit world, but then there were certain things that I didn't, and I really wanted to figure out. I think it was Charlemagne the God that was like, if there's something that you want to go do, go read books by people who've already done it. So I remember when I was working at a school and like all of a sudden, I think it was the day that I remember seeing the Tom shoes or whatever. And like that was no big deal. But then there was a day where everybody showed up with no shoes on. And so I was like, okay, what the heck is going on? And I guess it was a movement started by the Tom CEO. And then everybody started telling the story about Toms and that whole thing. So when this book came out, and I was already in the midst of trying to figure out and kind of follow my own vision and my own passion, then it made me want to read this book as well. And I don't know, I think it was on like it was one of the books on the list, because there were so many things. Like I would go to other people to try to talk to other people about my nonprofit, which is MOVE, which stands for Mastering Obesity, Values, and Education. And I would talk to all these people and they're like, oh baby, you're young, you don't want to do that, and you don't have to go start anything like that. So reading, I would keep wanting to call him Tom, reading Blake's story and like seeing that he was a young entrepreneur and seeing that he was a young person with a passion and with like the compassion for other people at such a young age, and was able to do amazing things with that, with his gift of just kind of collecting things and kind of putting pieces together and just really following his dreams. It really made me feel like, okay, this is the person who I need to kind of like use as a guide. And then picking up the book, fast forward, there was actually a guide, and it was more like this book has given me more guidance with my nonprofit. I'm not all the way there. There's so much that I still don't understand. There's so many unanswered questions still, but this book kind of got me to the point where I was able to narrow things down. And fast forward to maybe about 5 years later, Dave, I was trying to explain to Dave what my nonprofit was, and so far like what the point that I had gotten to so far in the nonprofit process, because he'd always ask like, why isn't it a business yet? Why is it, well, what is it, what is a nonprofit and how do you make money in this whole thing? And I remember thinking about this book, and even the fact that like at a young age, I'm not 100% if he went to college, I'm not sure, but it seemed like from a young age he saw things that he wanted to do and he just went after them. And I'm trying my best. Like, it's so hard as a parent to not say go to college, get a degree, and become what everybody says makes a lot of money. It's really hard to do that, because the moment I tell people like I'm gonna kind of let him get a feel for what he wants to do, and you know, whatever path he wants to go down, everybody looks at me like send him to college, tell him he has to go, and that's that. But I think there's more to living. Like, I feel like reading Blake's story made me realize like there's so much more than just following a path that has already been set for you. So the fact that he didn't follow the path that was given, I feel like he accomplished so much at such, like, it was like at the beginning of the book, he's like, my third business or something. And it's not braggy. It's just like, dude, this is the first one. Like, this is the first successful business. Or even learning from his failures and the things that he the bumps in the road of the shoe business, the bringing everybody together and how he introduced everything. Like, that mentality is what I want for Dave. I want him to actually think about, and we're always talking about this, like, what could you do? What is something that you would want to do for the rest of your life, where you would wake up and you would feel like, okay, this is exciting to me. Like, I love being a school counselor. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. But I tell him this all the time. I did not like waking up at the time that they told me to wake up at.
Waking up at the time. I did not like wearing what they told me to wear. I did not like what they what time that I had to be there, what time that I had to leave, and all of that.
Did not like have to explain why my kids were sick and trying to prove to them that they were so sick that I should leave. Like those types of things. And it hindered me from enjoying my job and enjoying what I was very passionate about, which was helping kids. So through Move, I'm able to now help kids and families in the same, actually in a better way now, and on a different level now, because I'm able to focus on those things. Like it used to, as a counselor, it used to be like, okay, I'm gonna focus on whatever tantrum you had, and I'm gonna hurry up and get you back to class. The whole point of Move is to connect the physical and mental health. So showing them using group counseling techniques and letting them talk to each other and have discussions and actually do different exercises. That's what it did. Like reading this book helped me kind of narrow down like a lot of the questions in his words into action part. The discussion questions. The discussion questions was like very like the facing your fears section, where it was like, okay, go do it. And it was very like in your face, like, okay, what do you like? What do you want to do? And how do you do it? And me and Dave haven't gotten to that point yet, but I let him read this book so that he could understand that like you don't just have to go into a cookie cutter role. Like you can find something you really like, that you really care about, something that impacts you, and make something successful, make a successful business out of it. So I just did a lot of talking. You read this book. What did it do for you?
There was a lot of things that I learned from this book, and it really just shows you how like if you don't have to have any experience. Like Mr. Blake didn't have any experience in the shoe industry. He didn't know what, like, all it took for him. He went out of the country. I think he went to Argentina, and he saw like all of the things that like all of the different types of shoes that like they were wearing, and he wanted to figure out a way to like bring that. That was after he like started like realizing like there's not the 1-for-1 model. There was there was not a lot of people that had shoes. There were people that didn't have access to shoes and were getting like foot diseases and all of that stuff. So he took that and he was like, okay, let's do he did nonprofit, like he did the one day without shoes thing that you were talking about. And then that just led up to him starting his shoe line called Tom's, and that meant this was the shoes for tomorrow. That's where he got it from. And they were the design was from Argentina. It was something that they wore. He just made it a little bit more sturdy. So it taught me that you don't have to have any experience in anything that you do to do it, if that makes sense.
I think it taught me that you just have to have a passion for it. So like my passion for Move is seeing generational, like, you know, I'm always saying generational cycles. Like it's seeing people who have kind of had the same type of mentalities, who have grown up in areas that don't have a lot of resources and who have not been exposed to a lot of different things, have not been exposed to, you know, different forms of stress management, have not been exposed to mental health and all that kind of stuff. Like my passion for helping them see things differently is so deep that like this has to work, you know. And I think his passion for making sure those kids had shoes was so deep that that's the reason like Tom's is built on the foundation of somebody who's like, these kids, these people not having shoes is not cool.
And I like how he doesn't just talk about his business in this. He brings up a lot of different businesses, allergic reactions to like all of the cleaning products that they like, all of the household cleaning products. So they ended up making their own with things that they did, like things that didn't harm them, because they realized that they weren't the only ones. There were many people who had the same allergic reaction. So they were like, why don't we make one that doesn't harm, like affect people. And it was funny because once mom had the baby, she didn't want she didn't want the baby to be like inhaling like all of the chemicals that I use to clean up.
Does that mean I didn't? Does that mean I didn't care about y'all? Okay, I'm sorry. I love y'all, but like the baby.
Once mom had
Shout out
the
to
baby.
Method. Okay. So
Once mom had the baby, she was like, yeah, I don't want the baby inhaling all of that stuff. So she started buying some and she did say something about like how she didn't want me inhaling all the chemicals as well. So she said that as well, but she mainly did it because once she had the baby, she didn't want the baby to be like inhaling all of those harmful chemicals, and that's understandable. So
okay. So fast forward. What do you care about?
what do I care about?
Yeah.
What do you mean by
And this is something that like that you may not be able to answer right now, but I want this book to plant that seed that like something you care about, like Bill Gates had to care about, like he loved computers, he cared about, like all these different people. A lot of these business ideas, they came from something, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them came from somebody who really cared about something, like something that sounded ridiculous to other people at first. Like that's like so many of our different businesses, like with Uber probably, I'm not sure the backstory or whatever, but like if you would have told me when I was in high school, like at 18, hey, there's gonna be a business where you get in random people's cars and you pay them money to take you where you want to go, I would be like, no sir, like I'm not getting in some random person's car and paying them to take me places. Like I only got in the car with relatives or friends or whatever. So like I want you to start, like the whole point of you reading this book, because I know you love your fiction, but the whole point of you reading this book was for you to see those crazy ideas that you think about, those things that you are really passionate about, the things that you see that make you sad, or the problems that you see that may need solutions. Like it's possible to build a business. It's possible to build something that helps, that also fulfills you. Like my biggest thing as far as being a counselor, like I left every day like when I actually was able to counsel, so like my first 3-4 years of counseling, where like I wasn't swamped in paperwork, and I actually had these groups of kids, and I talked to the incarcerated parents' kids one day, and I talked to the kids experiencing domestic violence at home. Like I left so fulfilled. Like I loved my job. And I mean, there was a part where it was like, I tell y'all about the fears that came out of it, and me being paranoid and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like I felt like I went to work and I did something truly that mattered. Like I touched kids on a regular basis. Like I had an impact and an influence on people's lives that I felt, and I left there having that feeling. And when I didn't have that feeling anymore, I left, right? Yeah. To work on something that I'm very passionate about. And you've seen that work, and I want you to not only see mine, because mine is not successful yet. I'm trying to use this as a blueprint and try to find other mentors as well to help, people who have done the same exact things to, try to use as a guide. But I want you, like at this age, to already start thinking about, like not thinking about like, okay, they say doctors, lawyers, teachers are really good people and they make a lot of money. Like, let me just go do that. I want you to think about what would be fulfilling. I want you to start noticing things like that. Like you go places on a regular basis, and like the fact that he noticed. Like I know so many people who have gone to third world countries, and you see kids dancing in the streets with the kids from Africa and all that kind of stuff, but like the fact that he noticed they don't have shoes, right? Like I'm not just here visiting. He looked at that and he had empathy for those kids and said, the fact that they don't have shoes, I could do something that benefits me and benefits them, right? So like I think it made me, like I allowed you to read it because I want you to start being more observant as well. And I also want you to not be as self-centered as you are. Like so looking at other people's issues and like, how can I be of impact? Like there's a world outside of my nice house and my nice neighborhood. And, I even heard you say like, oh well, mom and dad don't argue and this, like trying to spread your experience and share that with somebody else. Like the fact that you could not imagine what it's like to walk around without shoes, like you have never left this house without shoes, like, but that's somebody's reality, you know. And to be able to put yourself in that position, like somebody like Blake was able to put himself in a position like that is not cool and I want to do something about it. Like that's super powerful. And it just shows that like if you have a passion or you have something that you're very passionate about that actually helps people, it can go a lot further than, you know, than a normal business. And at the end of the day, like I bet he feels a lot better than like, I don't know if the CEO of Nike, like what they contribute. I'm sure they contribute at some point, but he's not selling like $200 and $300 shoes just to sell $200 and $300 shoes. Like he's selling them because I want to continue to be able. Like the other day, I was like, okay, is Tom still happening? And there was like a counter, and I'll have you edit that in there. But there's a counter for how many shoes he's given over the years. And this book was written, I know for a fact, I think the shoe company was started in like 2008. That's what I remember. That's so funny. I bought this book the year I started my nonprofit. So I started the nonprofit. I bought this book March of 2016. I did all the paperwork for my nonprofit in June of 2016. He wrote the book in 2012. So 4 years after I think Tom started in 2008 because that's when I remember seeing everybody. That's when I first started working at Yes, and I remember seeing everybody. 2006. Oh no, he took off work in 2006. So maybe it started in about 2008. I digress. So, definitely had an impact on me. I know that at this age it's very difficult for you to directly get an impact, but I let you read these books so those wheels can start turning, you know, so you can start paying attention and seeing things and being exposed to the different ways that you can live and have a successful life, like a different perspective on success. So we are very appreciative of all the jewels inside of this book. If you are a future entrepreneur, if you are planning a nonprofit, if you are just trying to figure out what do I want to do in life, or you're in a place where you're like, I'm not doing anything that's truly fulfilling to me, this is a very good book to kind of guide that. The discussion questions did a very good job of kind of helping me navigate my way through this process. Like I said, I started this in March, and that's weird. I haven't looked at that date in a very long time. I didn't even realize I read it in March. But from March, and then in June, what was that? 3 months later, my nonprofit had started. It just opened some doors, and it made me want to go research even more, because he went out of his way to make sure that this business was successful, and it did exactly what he said he was going to do. So shout out to Blake for writing a very amazing book, and for having a company that we are able to look up to and be inspired by.
And we are the Rooted Readers, signing off.